All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our live stream, our daily live stream. Let me get myself up here. Hey, we are here to learn about the awesome and fantastic FileMaker platform, here to be educational, to help you improve your skills as a developer, and to achieve new heights that you thought might be difficult. A reminder that we stream on 3 platforms. We stream on Discord, we stream on YouTube, and we stream on Twitch. So, we all got that going for us. My name is Margaret. I'll be your broadcast engineer for today. I'm here with Richard, who is over here hiding. Hello, Richard. Richard is here.
It's Officer Carlton.
Oh,
Thank you.
excuse me. Officer Carlton is here to discuss PSoS for beginners. So if you looked at Perform Script and sort of be like, boy, that's cool. I have no idea what I'm doing. We are here for you. So what we're doing that today, and then obviously we have the weekend coming. But what are we doing next week? So our next week's schedule is right here. PSoS for beginners and FileMakers today, and then Monday and Tuesday, Nick is back. Nick is always back. He returns to discuss his awesome image gallery solution in FileMaker, FM Gallery, and discusses how he does that. He pulls off some really cool tricks. Be sure to see that. On Wednesday, we've got archiving records in FileMaker with Calvin. You don't ever want to delete records, well, I don't want to say never, but generally you do not want to delete records in FileMaker, but if you want to get rid of some records of your database without deleting them, that's what that discussion is about. On Thursday, 360 Works is back to discuss their new updates to the 19.3 update to FileMaker. That'll be fun as always. And on Friday, we have how to hack scripts and objects in FileMaker. That will be for advanced users. JSON is going to abound.
Hey, I have a question. Are you guys going to get scheduled like the 2-day extravaganza JSON for idiots? Like
Yes, I'm going to discuss that with him and figure out when he wants to do that. So
that would be sweet, right?
that would be pretty sweet. If our schedule does not cover what you want to hear, or if you need something more, or something that's a bit less live and interactive, we have a really fantastic
Oh, it's awesome.
it's training course. It is a 90 hours of content and comes in a bundle. We cover
Oh my God, so amazing.
Pro, Go, server, anything you want to really talk about, cloud. We cover in fantastic 15 to 20 minute bite-sized chunks, highly animated. Richard's talking to you so you can't get bored. That's pretty much guaranteed. Please feel free to support the stream that we do weekly through this. It helps keeps the lights on. We greatly appreciate it.
Daily, not weekly.
Daily, sorry. Daily, 5 days a week. Boop.
If it was weekly, I could go on vacation. That would be awesome.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm here for, I guess. All right. Yeah. So.
Hey, yeah, so I'm here. So I don't know, Margaret, you want to make me kind of like
I am going to make you large. There we go.
Large and in charge. So this is Officer Carlton. I'm here to license and registration. You know how fast you were going, Ellen, in the 25-mile-an-hour school zone? You're doing 55 miles an hour. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun here to be with you all. Today is a great day. We've got a lot of good topics coming up, a lot of good topics that we've done already. Once again, a reminder, the content we're covering today is kind of a live Q&A of content that's in our live stream, or correction, in our pre-recorded FileMaker Pro video course. It's already part of the bundle. I'm going to pop up that along the way to talk about that, look at that, but it's good stuff. It's really, really, really good stuff. So I'm wearing my sunglasses just because it's Friday and I want to be extremely cool. And my my other glasses, my clear glasses, are in my sports car I left out elsewhere. So anyway, I can only see the screen if I wear my sunglasses. Real quick, so PSoS, let's talk about this a little bit. So in the world of FileMaker, I got a copy of Starting Point running right here. I'm going to pop open. Well, actually, let's talk about this real quick. So if you want to watch the videos that we have and you're in the FileMaker, it's called Pro 19. We call it Pro 19, but really it's our video player. You can open up video player. And if you've bought the bundle and you've paid for the bundle, your current, new, whatever, these videos right here, 0943, 0945, 0946. If you do a search for PSoS, you will find these, okay? But they are basically the 3 videos that cover PSoS in great deal. But we're going to do it live, which means it won't be quite as animated except for me waving my hands. And then what we'll do is we'll answer questions along the way. So, Margaret, you need to be on the patrol for be on the patrol. I thought it was Julie Andrews, right? Lobster. So we're always playing movie trivia as you folks put memes in the videos. I recognize Julie Andrews, right? So Cool. So video 0943, I'm just going to kind of cover the concepts of what we're talking about here. And I'm going to bring this up only from the standpoint that it's handy for me to reference a couple things in the video. So it was a photo that I saw years ago. This is in Iraq years ago. And this is like a legit picture. We cut out the background, but the donkey was being loaded up. The cart was being loaded up and it was too tail heavy. And so this is frankly what people do with the FileMaker platform. They say, oh, it's really great. They're like kind of new. They start adding more and more and more to it. And then they run into problems where there's performance problems. And so a lot of times we talk about performance optimization. However, one of the things you can do in performance optimization is offloading from FileMaker Pro, which is your poor donkey here, to like a truck. As the idea is to have a truck, and of course that's your data, and that's you over here wondering what the hell you're going to do. Your donkey is up in the air and not running. And so the idea is to get your donkey on the ground, and your donkey can lead your FileMaker client, but this is your FileMaker server. It's really quite good. So the idea is that you want to offload the work from your poor copy of FileMaker to the server, right? And that's the whole idea. And so what you can do is, the short version is PSoS, is perform script on server. There's also a very similar thing called SASE, S-A-S-E, that's server assisted script execution. We actually coined that term. I presented on SASE, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago at DEF CON. It was the first presentation on it. And it is that basically Claris has taken the ability, they take like a copy of FileMaker. And so when you install FileMaker server on Mac, Windows, or Linux, when you install server on there, you have the server software that, it takes care of the database. It's hosting it out to everyone, which is great. But invisibly, there's an invisible copy of FileMaker Pro on the machine. You can't see it. FileMaker doesn't call it FileMaker Pro, but that's what it is. It's a headless version of FileMaker Pro, so there's no interface to it. Like I'm over here right now in FileMaker Pro, and if I close this real quick and I go over here and I click off and I come back over here to FileMaker Pro right here, and you recognize all this and this. So what it is FileMaker Pro without this interface. So it has the ability to process calculations, run scripts, do all sorts of really great stuff, but it's on the server. And since it's on the server, that's right next to the location where your database is actually stored. So once you're on your FileMaker server, your database is up here. The idea is that we can tell the FileMaker server to run a process. And the idea is that it's going to run it up here for you instead of shooting the data downhill to you. The process typically, these numbers are very wildly wild calculator, but I would say these are on the low side of what you're going to get. 300% to 500%. I think consistently I see 400%, if not 1,000% faster, 10 times faster. And so the idea is to basically, you're on Pro and you realize you have a script that's going to take 5 minutes to run, but if you tell the server to do it for you, you're going to get a much higher degree of performance. Once again, this is stuff that Ellen all knows about. A lot of you here know about this. So ask questions, right? Because if you have a question, I mean, if you don't want to ask any questions, you can just watch the videos. But I think the idea is to make it a little more interactive. You get stuck. So the idea is that you at the client level are going to basically tell FileMaker server to run a process for you, and it's going to run the process. And what's important to understand is that this right here, the script you're going to perform will be basically, you could call another script on the FileMaker server and tell it to run it. So if we go over here to script workspace, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to show you something in FM starting point. I'm going to go say open recent. I'm going to open a copy of starting point. It's actually on one of our Linux servers, part of the new Linux technology that Apple rolled out. Claris, Apple, same thing. They rolled out with the 19 release. And so I've logged on to it here. And so I'm on FileMaker Pro. This is 19. Let me see about FileMaker, or is it over here? I wonder if it's broke. Help Windows tools.
It is hidden from you because you have a custom
menu. That's right.
set.
Right here. If I go to contacts, it'll change that out. There you go. About FileMaker Pro. So we're on 19.3.1, which is the current release. There is a 19.3.2, a bug patch release that they're eagerly working on to get that out the door. So the idea is that we're here doing things, but if you had some heavy lifting, the server could do it for you much, much faster. The idea is if you come over here into script workspace, I'm going to pop this up. I'm just going to create a new script. I'm just going to call it test. It doesn't matter. If I zoom over here on the right side and we say, That's a good question. Because I almost never look over here anymore. I just come over here in the code and I just start typing it and it finds it for me. So if I had to find it, where would it even be over here? Would it be over in control, perform script? Where would that even be? Navigation, perform script. Where would that? I don't even know. That's how far we've come since FileMaker 15. Is we just type over here, type what we're looking for, and it puts it in automatically. Found sets, Windows files. Is it a script? Perform script? I don't even know. Jacob, do you know where that's at? I'm laughing. You guys know where it's at?
I actually don't. I would use the search box on the steps.
Oh, you can do that. There we go. Perform.
And
there it is.
tell
It's
you,
under,
it's in
control. It's under control, right? So you have to go to the control menu right here. And so you get lazy because I pretty much have all these commands memorized, but I come over here and just type them and it auto puts it in, which is great. So, yeah, this is what I want to point out, that they're right next to each other. I'm going to use super Batman zoom mode right here. And so you have perform script, which is going to run the script on the computer. Disregard that the little popover. Perform script on this local computer. And then this right here, perform script on the server, will I target a script, but tell the server to run it for you. It will use the same credentials you're currently logged in as. So if you're logged in as Ellen, is your username and password is 1234, it's going to go to the server. It's going to say, hey, server. And then there's that hidden version of Pro there. Hey, Pro, hidden on the server. Run this for me on this file. Run this script. And here are your credentials, Ellen 1234. And so because we're already logged in, we know that we can log in. This should work. It's pretty awesome. So thank you. Yep, control. So the idea with this is that literally you could say, I could come over and select it if I want, perform script on server, double click it. I could zoom in a little bit and I could specify, give me a script. What script do you want to run? I don't know. The problem is that, remember, it's going to run the script, do it, and then generally you're not going to see anything happening. There's no windows popping around. There's nothing flashing. We can't see the server doing it. It's like invisible. That's why it's so fast. It's like a cloaked starship or something. It's invisible. It's there. It's doing its stuff. You can't see it. You only know if it's done or not, basically, is a short version, right? And of course, it can set values into fields. It can do things for you. It can update charts, things like that. But the point is that it can't, there's not that much, I mean, I could tell it to run a script, right? Like zoom in or zoom out. The problem is largely, keep in mind that copy of FileMaker has no Windows, so it's going to ignore any of the Windows controls. They're all virtual. It thinks about them in its mind, but it doesn't really generate the windows and pop them open, things like that. So we could tell it to run a script, set device mode, right? I could tell it to run the script, right? I could pass the script parameter. And then it's now really important right here is an option that you have, wait for completion on or off. And the wait for completion on or off is basically the idea that obviously it's basically the concept of fire and forget or you wait. So with this turned on, your FileMaker Pro will sit here and stupid. Well, the server will do it faster than you would otherwise, but there's some sort of really important thing it's doing for you, and we want to wait to get that result back, okay? And so that's, once again, the concept of a script parameter that we pass, or a script result is what comes back. So that we gets back this idea, I'll wave my hands here a little bit, but the idea is that when you're shooting a script, when one script calls another script, you can pass a string of text, whatever that string of text is. It's like my analogy is you're putting a Post-it note on a football, American football. You post a note on there. You're the quarterback, and you want to ask the receiver, hey, you want to have beers after the football game today? And you write that note on there, and you throw that way down the field, and the server collects it, or your football player catches it, stops, and reads the Post-it note, right? That's a script parameter that you send. If the person on the other end writes a note back and throws the football back to you, that's a script result. Script parameter is outbound. Script result is inbound back to you. It's the same mechanical process. They call it two different things. It should have been script parameter out, script parameter in, but whatever, script result. Script result does make sense. So you can wait for it, or you could do fire and forget, which is where you pickle that thing off. You fire it off like a missile, off it goes out there, and you kind of go on about your own business, right? And that could be very handy because the server could be running a process, takes it 30 seconds or a minute, and you can go on about doing your thing, and then at some point it finishes, updates some information, and then you see that information on your screen, right? this is the idea that we would run this and it would do it and it would wait, right? So it's really basic. The things that trip people up about this is that you really have to think about this being a copy of FileMaker Pro on the server. Because if you fire up a copy of FileMaker Pro on the server and you say, here's the username, password, and it sounds like there's a fire going somewhere. So what you do is you have that you're going to target the file that you're on, right? It automatically does that. You can't target another file. You have to be on the file that you're on. And you're telling that copy of FileMaker Pro to open up the file. See, so keep in mind that copy of Pro running on server that's invisible, it's not running the file all the time. It's only running the file when it's running the script. So it's going to open the file, do the work for you, send you a script result back if you want it, and then it's going to close the file. It doesn't just leave it open. Once again, the PSoS process, or this hidden version of FileMaker Pro, is going to talk to server. In fact, FileMaker server sees it as being a client. We run this, it'll say, Richard's logged in Los Osos, and then, oh, this server is logged in doing some process. It'll be on there for a minute or two, and then it'll disconnect. It'll disappear off the server administrative screen. So the server process, the software, the FileMaker server software,
Okay.
which, what question? Yes.
Quick question. What's the best way to log a PSoS script? If I want to have a script to be fired and forget it, would be nice to have a log so if it ever breaks, you know where.
We're going to show that. So let me finish this up. So the server, there's a server process that hosts the file. There's a PSoS/SASE process, which is like this invisible version of FileMaker that can run a script for you. Okay, and they're literally separate processes, and the server treats that PSoS as a client, right? It really does. Like if you have 20 clients and you have PSoS as being one of those, and you know, have 19 maybe real people, and one of them is this PSoS, which is a client, but it's kind of a virtual client because it's running on the same piece of hardware, right? It's running on the same server software itself. Very important. It's once again, some of the other videos we do, we kind of animate it, but it's the server process and the PSoS. Now, because you're telling it to open, this is a super important tip, because you're telling the file to open, the PSoS to open, what is it going to do? Username, password, and then what does a file do when you first open it? It runs a startup script. Well, I don't want it to run the startup script. Tough. It's not the way. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. You're not allowed to go 55 in a 25-mile-an-hour zone. It's not up to you. You don't get to pick the speed limit, right? This is the way it works. And so you want to understand that PSoS will run the startup script, and when it closes, it's going to run the close script. And so if you don't want it to do that, you need to trap for that and look at that. So let's talk about the logging, because this is really good stuff. So we are looking at a copy of FM starting point right here, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the startup script, which is right here, okay? Now, the startup script, there's a lot of things in here. These are all pretty well commented. You can see it's commented. I did it because I do these long lines. I try to make it very visually, kind of like to break it up a little bit. So you see these sections, and you're going to scroll down here till you get to this section where we talk about PSoS somewhere down here. And so we're doing all sorts of mechanics and testing this and setting things up so it's all ready to go. This all runs every time. This runs every time you fire up starting point, right? And so keep in mind that if we call in starting point here and we tell PSoS to run, it's going to run the startup script, right? Like, oh, okay. So you have to take all this stuff into account. So let me scroll down here. What we do is we do a detection right here with starting point. Remember, with starting point, I'm giving it away, and some people might run it locally on their computer. They might run it on their server. Their server may or may not be configured correctly. Keep in mind also that the server by default has supports like 25. The number varies on the license that you install, but you should assume that your basic FileMaker server, after installation, it can support 20 or 25, whatever the number is, PSoS clients simultaneously. If you have a bigger license, or you want to go into the preferences and change this, I think in the command line tool, once again, Jacob, we did a live stream about using command line to change how FileMaker server is configured. You can up the number of PSoSs. So you could actually have 20 like copies of Pro simultaneously spin up on the server running scripts for you. Now, if you tell the server to have 20 PSoSs all running for you, doing a lot of work, your server might slow down. So you want to think about it, right? The server has to be able to handle that, or you have to be willing to wait through the slowness while this happens, right? So there is such a thing as too much of a good thing, right? That idea.
Okay.
So I know I see that question too. So let me answer the questions in order, because I got people jumping in here. So So what we do is right down here, we actually write what we call a wrapper sequence, so wrapper script. So from right here to right here is a set of if statements, right? And the if statements that you're really interested in is what we do is up here at the beginning, we do a pattern count to see if PSoS should be functional. So what we're doing is we do a test to see if the application version, the word server is in that string. Exactly, the host or the application, it has server in it, right? And if it's not server, right? You see what I'm saying? If it's not server, then we tell it to run this script right here, perform script on server. See, if this script runs and it's on server, it will just skip this, right? Because you can't have a server called PSoS because it's already on the server, right? You can't say, I am a FileMaker server script, I'm running on the server. And then call the server again. It's like, I don't know, like a nested maze of craziness. The server can't call another server script. It doesn't work that way. So the client, we have to be a client. So basically this says, if we are, this in plain English just says, if we are a copy of FileMaker Pro, Go, or WebDirect, then we can continue. And what we do is we run a script called PSoS diagnostic, which has this log thing in it that is interesting, okay? And so then we attempt to run this and we check to see if we get an error back. PSoS can fail, the process can crash, or say you have 20 of them that are running and you're number 21, you're gonna get an error message back, right? So what we do is the part of process, and this is really useful and starting point for you to play with this, is that we're detecting whether PSoS is available and we do kind of a test run to it to see if it will work. If it fails outright, then we just make a note to ourselves that it's not available, it's not running, and don't plan on using it, right? So it's kind of one of those kind of tests. You don't have to do the test, but it is somewhat useful to do that. And so what you do is of course, this is if we're running on a client, then we're going to try to run this on server. So I'm looking at this. Do I have this the right way, Jacob? Am I looking at this, or did I screw this up and run backwards? So perform script on server, right? Oh, right, the else is right here. So this is the section of code right through here. So there is the test, right? So it's looking to see if things are functional, and it's going to write a log entry, right? So here it says PSoS has failed, right? It attempts to run it. We get an error message back, something other than 1. Remember, when FileMaker returns an error 0, it means everything's fine. If it returns something else, which could be a couple different codes here, we just know that it's failed for some reason. And we just say, hey, it's not, we set a global variable initially. We can see this, it's not available. And then we write a log, right? We write a log here, okay? Else, if it works, we just make a note that it is available. It's available. That makes sense. And then when we tell it to run this script 0027, we're telling this the PSoS to run script 27. So if I zoom back out briefly here, I've got on a script 27, it's not going to do too much. You just set some current items here, and then it goes to a log file and writes a log entry in there and says PSoS is good, right? So when I start it up, I'm going to unclose this and I'll show this to you. I'm going to revert all my changes. I'm going to go to home. I'm going to go down here to over here. Where's my, it's in preferences, right? How do I get to my audit log? Right here. So right here, check it out. So when I fired this up, this must be using the server time. Where's the server at, Jacob?
It's West Coast.
Okay, well, logged it as 8:12:09 p.m.
Yeah, so it'll use the server time. All Linux computers, and technically actually Macs, are UTC or GMT 0 time zone. They're all standardized.
It's 1 o'clock here, and it's +7. It makes it 8 o'clock in the UK. So those are in the UK. There you go. So that's why I'm like, oh, my demo just went sideways. But no, that's correct. So when I fired up starting FileMaker, it said, okay, Richard's starting things up. And then, oh, by the way, I'm going to run a test on PSoS. And PSoS actually wrote this log entry for me. So for Bean, I've already built it for you. Just take a look at FM starting point, open up, it's free. You can see where we've done this. So it writes the log entry here, right, for us. And then it just exits. But keep in mind, when we told it to run, we told it, I just closed the file. That was dumb. We told it to run, it's going to run the startup script and the exit script. So you need to consider those things. I'm going to go back here and open it back up. I'm going to go back to the script workspace. I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut for that, which is Command-Shift-S for script workspace. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here at the top. And what we do at the top of the script, if I'm in that's in 27. This is a startup script right here. So this is the designated. So I'm going to zoom back out because I'm about bouncing all over here. If I'm in my file over here and I say file options, what you're going to see is that it's going to run. It's on. Cannot be used to access this. Oh, this. Okay, it's mad about that. Yep. Okay, so right here, if I zoom in, this is the startup script. So on first window open, it runs 001 start. So that's a startup under here, right? We all have that. So then it's going to run the very first script, which is right here, which is 001. And what happens at the beginning? And I write this out. I'm very verbose about stuff. Log initial startup by client. If client is server, like SAS here, PSoS, bail out, right? So it says, is the server, am I running on something called server? If it is, it just exits. So we expect PSoS to run on starting point. We just tell it that on the startup script and the closing script, we run this little command right here. Hey, we're a server. We're just going to exit, right? Else, it actually starts writing a log entry saying, hey, we're firing things up. We're getting going here. And then it does all this stuff. And down below, it'll do the PSoS test. And the PSoS writes that log entry, right? Pretty cool. Monkey bread, context is everything with PSoS. So I'm not going to get too big. I will talk about the context stuff some. But the trick, the issue is with PSoS is that there's ways. So understand that, and this is actually on the certification test for those of you wondering about this. So if I'm over here, say for example, I'm on contact record and I'm got 26, 24 records, and I'm gonna search for everyone with the letter R. Okay, so up here at the top. See, and let's just say I'm also going to sort by first name. Okay. So now look up here. I have a found set, a sort state. I'm also on a specific window, right? So I'm on this window called L300A, and there's a title binder, but we number it. If I call PSoS from here, remember all we're telling PSoS is open this file with these credentials and run this script. After you run the open script, right? See what I'm saying? So after you run the open script, then run this other script. It doesn't know that I'm on this layout. It doesn't know the found set. It doesn't know the sort state. It has no clue. It's like if people like the old used to say, it's like in high school, like, weren't you born? Are you born yesterday, man? You're so stupid. Yeah, the PSoS was born yesterday. It doesn't know anything. All it knows is how to open the file with the credentials, and it'll run the startup script. And it'll waste time on it if you don't tell it not to. And then it's going to run your script. So it doesn't know, like say I really want to do an analysis of Ryan Alvarez Smith and how much he's been buying with us. Well, we would have to somehow pass Ryan Alvarez Smith or his ID number up here in the script parameter to PSoS so it knows what it should be focusing on. That makes sense? Very, very, very important. So Lobster was talking about context is king here, without a doubt. One of the most important things here. Now, there are some advanced tricks for passing your found set. Like it'd be really great if there was a checkbox that says, pass my context to the server. No, Claris didn't do that. So we had to write some very clever ways of passing your found set, sort state, all that kind of context information to the server. That's more of a Nick video. We've covered that in great length. If you do a search for PSoS in our live streams, and you check out the Nick's conversation about that, he talks about how to transfer the found sets. Today is kind of the basics, right? So we just want to get people kind of thinking about using PSoS and what does it do for you. Why would you use PSoS? Because you put too much work on your poor donkey on a FileMaker Pro, right? Yeah, go ahead, Margaret.
I've got one question on Twitch. We got other Discord. We're going to do the Twitch one first from NVIDIA. If PSoS gets into an infinite loop or hangup, do you restart FileMaker server service via CLI or disconnect the user connection in admin console?
Hey, Jacob, do you want to show your screen? You want to log on the server admin console real quick and walk through this on the server? I think it's educational. I'm going to quit sharing my screen briefly. I'm going to have Nathan do, or not Nathan. So Nathan is asking a question. Jacob is going to show us the demo of this because he can log on the server faster than I can.
Yeah, the problem is I don't have my screen set up for streaming.
Uh-oh. Well, the short version is that there's a couple answers to this question. It's not just one answer. So once again, PSoS is a separate process, a separate thing. You can actually restart it with the command line without destroying the FileMaker server. However, it can destroy the FileMaker server. The FileMaker server is not perfect, and you need to, so this gets back into I'll share my screen a little bit more until Jacob's ready, and let me know when you wake up, Jacob. That's fine. The issue with FileMaker server, we talked about robots a week ago or 10 days ago or something, right? And the issue is that if you have a 5-second script or a 10-second script or a 3-minute script that is pretty reliable, that there's really not a lot of ways it can fail. Like it doesn't do an insert from API curl request or something like that. Something funky, ODBC processing of whatever, right? Something that's dependent upon other things that could go sideways, like drivers that go bad. Then having PSoS or SASE do it for you on the server is pretty safe. But if you have a process that takes an hour for it to run and it's got a lot of moving parts, you're running a risk running it on the server. Server, in my professional opinion, after 30 some odd years of doing this, is that you can run PSoS or SASE if it's generally lightweight and cuddly and not too gnarly and intrusive and gnarly. Gnarly is a good word. Kind of like really like a big muscly, ugly script that runs for an hour. Well, it takes 5 hours to run it on my Pro, so I'll only have it run 1 hour on the server. Okay, that's just a bad idea. What you need to do on a deal like that is have a robot, separate conversation, but it's very much kind of the same thing. We put the robot up on the cloud or wherever the server's next to the server, so it's 2 pieces of hardware literally sitting next to each other. That way, it runs on FileMaker Pro. So if there's a problem and it gets disconnected or crashes or something, it doesn't take out part of the server processes with it. So you want PSoS and SASE to be lightweight and cuddly enough that they're not likely to blow up. If they're likely to, like we were demonstrating a robot that we run around the clock, and our robot crashes, unfortunately, right now about every 5 or 6 days, and one of my IT guys has to reset it, right? Having a process on my FileMaker server crash every 5 or 6 days, which is probably likely what would happen if we moved it onto PSoS or SASE, this is horrible. You want your FileMaker server to be very boring. So boring that people don't even think about it. It just runs around the clock. It never crashes. It never has a problem. The way you keep a server boring is that you don't ask it to do too much crazy stuff. Okay. And one way of being crazy is to load it down with a ton of PSoS processing. So if you got a 20-second script, a 2-minute script, a 5-minute script, right? Then you want it to run on PSoS. But if you want to do this big, awesome processing, it takes your client 8 hours to do, and it's going to take the server an hour to do. That's still much better than 8 hours. It's better to put that on a copy of Pro because FileMaker server can deal with a legit copy of Pro on a client going bonkers and disconnecting it. It deals with that much better than it does with an internal process, the internal hidden copy of Pro going bonkers. It's just the way it is. So, Jacob, are you ready to show your screen a little bit?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, so you're on your screen. We're going to, or not on your screen, but I'm off. So if you want to turn yours on.
Yep, there it is.
Okay, so yeah, Margaret. Yep, that's good. Looks good. So he's going to log onto our FileMaker server. And what we want to do is somewhere we can, we set up it's similar with SASE, right? So let's talk about SASE where you set up the schedules. Where is that at? It should be on here somewhere.
Yeah, so you go to configuration and go to script schedules.
So this is PSoS, but this is set on a schedule. And when you set this up, go ahead and just pick one if you want. Create a schedule and then go to the file.
Yeah, so some schedule. We're going to pick a database and we'll say what? We do FMSP, sure.
Yeah, do that, right?
And I've got our, and then we'll do which script do we want? Do you have a
I don't care. Just say set device mode is fine. Just say set device mode. It's worthless. But stop right here. Here's the part right here. If you want to, we want to zoom in on that a little bit. But the point is that you see the timeout right there. So for SASE, there's this idea of a timeout. So this process that you see right here, everyone, is the exact same as PSoS, except with PSoS, we are explicitly calling it. This one here is on a calendar, like on a calendar with little days and months and times and stuff. And on 5 o'clock on Tuesday, it's going to fire this thing off. If we say that the script will only take 5 minutes ever, then and never will ever take more than 5 minutes, then we say after 15 minutes, it's going to forcibly terminate the script, something like that, right? That's kind of the idea right there. You don't have this option with PSoS. It's just going to run until the server crashes or that process crashes. Jacob, you want to talk about resetting the PSoS a little bit? I mean,
sure.
You don't have to do it.
There's basically two ways. So the person asked basically, do you do it via the administrative console, which is what we're looking at, or do you want to try it on the command line? I will basically put it this way. You generally want to try and do the pathway where you're disconnecting the errant, we'll say the errant user, this performed script that has run wild. You want to do that. Yeah, you want to do that on the admin console if you can. I generally consider the command line intervention to be a little more explosive of a response. And the reason for that is because what you can do on the server is you can restart the entire script engine on the server, not the database, not web presentation, not DAPI, not any of the other little bits, but just that. However, while it's rebooting, you do not have PSoS. And so if anything in your solution, and that includes, Richard does an ill-timed boot of FMSP while I'm restarting this thing, and it goes and tests PSoS, it'll fail.
Right. And so that's kind of the idea that you test for that. So the emergency process is, say you have a process. Whoops. Am I still there? Whoop, yep. I tried to run over my microphone here. You're on FileMaker. You're going to try to go to your FileMaker client and disconnect the client is what you're going to try to do. So you'll see PSoS running over here doing something, and you'll say kill it, and it'll say disconnect it, and it'll say how many minutes to disconnect? It's like 2 minutes. Now I'll give it 0 minutes. I want it disconnected now. If you can kill it that way, that's great. That may not work. So that step 1 is to kill it here. Step 2 is to kill it with the process to reset it with the command line if possible. Yep. And if that doesn't work, step 3 is restart the server. So in that order. That's why the robot's so much better, because I guarantee that disconnecting it from here will fix it on a like a here's Richard Carlton and it's really misbehaving. Jacob can press that and press disconnect and go ahead and do it, Jacob. That's fine. And then it's like no, not 2 minutes. It's 0 minutes because it's a process that's running, right? And you say bye-bye, and it's going to kick mine out of the server. Boom. And I'm going to check my screen over here, and I've been disconnected. I am gone. And so that's why robots are better, because it's handled so much better. You really can't hang a process. Well, yeah, pretty much you never hang a process with a client like that.
Yeah, it's really difficult.
All right, cool. So boring servers, boring robots are good, but hard to achieve. Yeah, boring robots always a little bit.
Here, I can demo this too. I'll do the chart update. We can show killing it if you want.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah. So what we're going to do is there's a chart on the front of starting point that runs some updates. We cache the values of the chart. So this is PSoS running right here. Can you click on that, stretch that out a little bit, or is there any more we can do? And so the name of the client is the name of the script. Right? It's a script running name, right? And then it says, oh, by the way, it's FMSE. That's a FileMaker Server Script Engine. FileMaker Server Script Engine is basically AKA Invisible Pro. That's Invisible Pro, but that's what they call it. Claris doesn't use clever things like Invisible Pro. It's a FileMaker Server Script Engine, which is SASE and PSoS. So this could be manually activated by someone as a script, or it could be scheduled as part of that scheduling thing that we showed a second ago. Mm-hmm. So anyway, we could kill it now. We could go in there and say, please die and go away. Say this hangs, it's still running, like tomorrow is still running, right? So we can click on it.
The sign ends like 12 hours ago, and we're going to go disconnect. And we don't even have to send a message because we're telling the invisible robot on the server to die, go away. Jump in a lake. Yeah.
Jump in a lake.
We'll say, okay, and there it went.
So nothing was overly funky and handled it very well, but it's not always going to be that way. So
yeah, you can do some really ugly things in your performed scripts that will result in that basically not working. You'll try and kick it, and it won't go away. So
okay, so I'm going to jump back to my screen real quick, Jacob. Stand by on yours in case we want to do that. I'm going to share my screen.
I can see it now.
There we go. So I'm back over here. I reopened the file because it was closed. And so once again, this is a script process right here. Now, this is one of those moments where it's kind of interesting. So this little round spinny thing here is our way, a little indicator telling us that we've started PSoS and it's still running, but we killed it as part of a demo. So this is a misleading indicator right here. This is an animated GIF that we hide most of the time. And so right now it's confused because if I go to the data viewer, I don't know if it'll let me do this or not. Tools, data viewer. Data. Yeah. So what I need to do is I need to log on over here go to the preferences record. So remember, preferences is a single record. If I do it, show the top area, we have a record right here. It says PSoS diagnostics is available. So that means that is there and it was good, which was just kind of the handy indicator for us. The problem is that it's spinning endlessly right now. And the way you have to fix that is you have to set it back to, in fact, this is probably something we need to do on server. Is dependent upon a flag field. So I'm going to click on it's hiding it right here. It's kind of an interesting little thing. It's called flag. If I zoom in over here, it says flag is PSoS running, right? And so this is the field right here. And so when we start PSoS, we set it to 1 or 0. And then when it's done, the server we set it to 1, get it going. When the server's done, the last thing it does before it shuts off the PSoS, it sets it back to 0, then closes the file. And so what happens is that you have visibility into the fact that it's running. So what I need to do is drag this field on here. We need a little, in our next version of Starting Point, which Nick is working on, by the way, is that we need to, what was it called? Flag PSoS is running right here. So I'm going to go back to, and I'm going to set it to the control style needs to just be a text field. Control style, edit box. There we go. Browse mode. So notice it's set to 1, right? So it's spinning. So what I do is I'll set it to probably 0 or something, or empty. And see, it goes away. See that? And so we probably need like an emergency, like a reset button on that. It should be something we should do, but only because we killed it. So what happens is that we tell the script to run. What I'll do is I'm going to copy this field again. I'm going to put it back on the main home screen. Browse mode, go back to the dashboard, go back here. I'm going to paste it right here. So there's a little animated GIF down there. I'm going to put this right here so you can kind of see this happening. So what happens, we're going to start this running. So here's where we use PSoS in Starting Point in one spot. Is that these charts, if you have a lot of data, can be a real process. There's a lot of data, and your client will sit there and go, it could be horrible. So what we do is we say, update the charts. Okay. Now that sent a command to the server, and the server is now running. This animated GIF is being displayed because the value over here is 1. Pretty straightforward, right? And so it just tells us that, everyone sees a little spinning thing, right? That means something's happening, right? Coffee cup or whatever, some sort of action thing. And so the server's over there processing the chart, calculating totals, sub-summary fields, all the horrible stuff in FileMaker we tell you never to do. We could package it all together in this script called update the chart or whatever it's called. And we're calling that on the server. And so it takes it 2 or 3 or 5 minutes. In fact, the server could log when it starts. In fact, this just updated one chart. It could update. It can log when it starts and log when it ends, and you can see the elapsed time on the log. In fact, we'll check that in a second, right? So, so the server, when it's done, will set this field, assuming the record's not locked. It will set this field back to 1 or back to 0. That will turn off. And then the people know that it's not, that the charts are up to date, right? So it's kind of we're trying to leverage the tools, make it look appealing, but under the hood, this is how you do it, right? So questions from anyone?
Yes, we do have one from Bean that I set until we had some space for it. Bean had an earlier question asking, what's best practice for your PSoS script in regards to error checking? Is it no different than writing a regular script?
Correct.
Do you think it's worth to have extra error checking in your PSoS and to log if there is an error in your audit table?
Absolutely. That's what we do in Starting Point. So look, it just finished, right? So it went to server. Remember we talked about firing and waiting. Well, this is the fire and forget, right? So it was running and we could have gone and done whatever we wanted. So so the client had no idea the server was doing anything or was done. All it knows that a client somewhere on the internet went into this value right here and updated this right here from 1, right, to 0. And then that turns off my graphic and we know it's good. And obviously the charts start to populate and pop up, right? So the question is, let's take a look at the log, right? So why don't we look at the log? I'm going to press here. I'm going to say log, audit log. And I'm going to come down here and it says at 8:46, which was 2 minutes ago, GMT, it started the dashboard calculation right here. It wrote the log entry, it wrote the script information, et cetera, et cetera. And then over here, it shows that I wrote a note that it's PSoS or SASE running, because you can't really tell the difference between PSoS and SASE. You just know it's one or the other. And the application version is server, right? So if I click in here, we'll have to look at that. Admin. See, it doesn't say anything over here. Application. It should say whether it's pro or not. So we'll have to kind of look at that. But the short version of that is that is what it did. And then it started at 8:46. Technically 32 seconds. And then it finished 8:47 and it marked the elapsed time. And if there were any errors along the way, we could have written them in there. Touchdown. So I've already built the sample for you. It's free, totally free. How do you get the free file, Margaret? Where do you go?
To fmstartingpoint.com.
Amazing. No, David, the flag field is not global. Why? Because if you have 100 users doing this and you got a bunch of them that are marketing salespeople, and they're all like crazy about their charts. Got to see a chart. How am I doing on my sales performance? And they're all coming over here going like this. They're all going over here like this. And they're like, they're clicking it. Except, oh, wait a minute. We detect that one is already there. And it says, oh, it's already running somewhere else. Why don't you cool your jets and relax, right? And so we don't, because otherwise, if we don't, a global field would only be set for you. You'd know it's running. No one else would know it's running, right? So, makes sense, David? Yes. The downside is that if we were over here, happen to be in preferences, and we happen to be editing this information, which is a real stretch, then if you try to set it, you're going to have an error. So you could do a test. I don't think we do it at starting point. Do a test to make sure that you absolutely set the 0 or 1 in there and it was reliably set and there wasn't any errors on that, right? So anyway, that makes sense. So yeah, so that's the idea. So we that's when we say starting point is specifically tuned for hundreds of users simultaneously. That's no joke. We thought this all the way out, right? We thought it all the way out.
Also, it would be really funny if you did it as a global, because then every single user would get their own flag.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So you could run up to 100 chart updates, or however many users you have. You could run up to that many number of chart updates simultaneously, which is, I think, not the idea.
Well, and then the charts would be overwriting each other because this isn't global data. Remember, we're in a preferences table, preferences record. So the record is shared with everyone, right? Now, here's the reality. If your preferences becomes high traffic area, like say you're in an office and you know how the refrigerator is and people are at the coffee and maybe you don't have enough, little kitchen areas in there. And so all it's the watering hole for the herd right now, right? You could have people where we start getting record lock errors and preferences. So you could actually create a table just with flags for this stuff, like PSoS flag table, and all it's there. People only write into that when they're setting it. And the only reason you would set it is because you would test to see it's in a state that is eligible to be changed, right? So yeah, so you could do that. We haven't done that, but with like our finished goods system, we started to have to take this charting and dashboard system, which does all this out, and break it out into its own table, because we were actually starting to run into record conflicts with, because we had 30 clients and all the web people ordering training online, and they would start to hit. And so, yeah, so we didn't, because you come to work, you come to work in the morning and you see this spinning like this, and you're like, what the hell? And then at 10 o'clock in the morning, it's spinning. And then 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it's spinning. And it never stops spinning. It's because there was a record lock, something broke, and now it's stuck open. So you need to kind of, once again, starting point is a starting point. It's not finished and totally complete, but we do a lot in here and we eat our own dog food. And so, that's one little spot we probably ought to document a little better in the future release and say, hey, if this is, stuck or something, then just come over here and, reset. So. Cool. Questions, Ken, right? We're kind of winding down. It's Friday. Brings up the question, is there a way to prevent records from being created like in a press table? Yeah, you can set record security to prevent it, right? You can say no creation of new records, right? On that table, right? On the privilege set, right? If you're an admin, you kind of override and bypass that. But if you can go into file, manage, security, and then you can create a new privilege set. Call it, I don't know, well, it's a new account, but I need a new privilege set. So let me go to this card. Oops, shoot. File, I did this backwards. File, manage, security. And then you say new, I did it again, cancel. Okay, hang on 1 second. Let me go over advanced settings over here is where I need to be. I need to create the privilege set first. So it'd be like a user, well, they'll call it normal user, right? Someone who can do everything, but they can't add a record. So you'd say, well, you can create and edit records in all tables. You can create and edit in all tables. You can only view, so you say custom privileges right here. So records, see that right here, custom privileges. And then you go up there and you say yes to all of them, right? But then you get down to the preferences, wherever it's at, under P for preferences, right there. And you say, well, they can view, yes. They can edit, yes. They can create, no. They delete, no. Field access, all. And you set that up, and then you set the accounts for that, right? So anyway. And say the user fired PSoS. Remember, when you fire PSoS, it's going to have the same credentials you have. It's passing your username and password. You can't see it. It's passing it to the server, and the server is going to use it. You can't give it. You can't be a junior detective and then pass. Well, okay. You cannot expect to pass different credentials. You can tell a script to run as an admin, so then it gets around that. But that's, once again, you're teetering between admins and not admins. So if you go script workspace over here, if you see a little person right here, that means that script runs no matter who activates it. Even if it's a read-only person activates it, that script will run with admin privileges, which means it can delete. That script can do all sorts of deletes or whatever it wants to do. So yeah, so it's there's a lot to this platform. It's a really great platform. It does a ton. And it's a little overwhelming. That's why we have kind of days like this, a little more basic. Poor Ellen's bored out of her mind, right? I'm sure she's drinking heavily.
Next week, we have 2 days of Nick with the free image gallery stuff. We have Wednesday with archiving your records. Please do not delete your FileMaker records. It's bad juju. We have the 360 Works plugin updates for FileMaker with Joe Martin. And then on Friday, we have How to Hack Scripts and Objects with Quell Williams. And Monday, again, we have more Nick. So we look forward to seeing you next week. It's been great having you here this one. And thank you for showing up to the stream and asking questions. We love having you guys here. Y'all have an amazing weekend, all right?
Y'all? Wow.
Okay. A lot of my friends are Southern.
Okay. Roger that.
Y'all have a great weekend.
Y'all have a good weekend, y'all.
I swear.
Guys just stepped up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected the quarterback. Good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Try to rally down 10. 9:25 to go here in the fourth. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap. Stands in, throws it left for Amendola. Reaches up and snacks a high throw and lands inside the 10. Rolling to the 9. Ball slightly behind him. Again, he makes the grab.